Hi everyone, welcome to Bonnie Carolee Makes Cards. I always feel like I'm a little bit late getting out of the gate with Simon Says Stamps monthly card kits. I know I'm not the only one that's at the mercy of slow international mail. But who could resist the beautiful stamp set Garden Greetings? For those of you who already have the kit, maybe this will give you some more inspiration to dig it out and use it again. If you love Garden Greetings, although the card kit is sold out, the stamp set is still available at simonsaysstamp.com. So let's get started. I knew I wanted to use the three major stamps in this stamp set, and I knew exactly how I was going to orient them on the cards. So I began with my ink blended backgrounds on Bristol Smooth cardstock. For this first card, I'm using a combination of Distress Oxide inks, Ice Spruce, Old Paper, and Spun Sugar. The ink colors are applied multiple times, extending one color into the next until I have a nice smooth blend. For this panel, I use a combination of Hickory Smoke, Pumice Stone, and Speckled Egg. This panel is destined to have the wreath on it, so I begin in the middle with my lightest color and radiate outwards with my darker shades. All of the panels that I'm working on are 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches, A2 size. When I'm videotaping, I need some kind of alarm system to let me know that I don't have it turned on. So I somehow missed the ink blending for the last panel, but the inks that were used for it were Crackling Campfire, Dried Marigold, and Scattered Straw. For this one, I worked on both ends of the panel with the lightest colors and then worked towards that vibrant Crackling Campfire red in the center. When I'm going to be heat embossing, I do let my panels sit and dry completely for several hours. The panel was die cut with Simon Says Stamps stitched rectangles. I used the largest die from this nesting set. When die cut, you actually have the inner panel and then an outer border. If you retain both, then you end up with this cool double stitched effect. I'm stamping the leafy garland with one of the colors that was used in the background, the Ice Spruce. To really help it pop off the panel, I'm going to be clear embossing it. To minimize warping, I let the heat tool come to its maximum temperature before the heat is applied to the panel. The Sentiment Hugs is stamped with Versamark ink and embossed in gold 2 times to help give it a more dimensional and smooth appearance. The secondary sentiment, Love You, is also stamped with the Ice Spruce and then clear embossed. The inner stitched panel is mounted on black sheet foam and then set aside to dry before the excess foam is trimmed off. I'm using my large shears to trim the foam down. Making large cuts really helps to keep the edge of that foam nice and smooth. The stitch border is attached to an A2 size top folding card base of Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. The foam back panel is then adhered to the card. I ordered one of the charity boxes from Simon Says Stamp for their fundraiser for Huntington's disease, and I got this nesting die set, which I actually didn't even know existed, and I'm just loving that double stitch detail. This card was finished up with gold confetti topped with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew. Well, I had to have at least one vibrant card out of the 3. This panel was stamped with Versamark ink and embossed with gold. After it was heat embossed, the panel was simply flipped over, popped into the MISTI, and stamped again. No need to reposition the stamp. For the primary sentiment, I'm going to be using Simon's Big Scripty Hugs. I'm going to position it to figure out where I'm going to be placing my secondary sentiment. I love black embossed sentiments, but I can never get a clean look and always have black specks everywhere. So to get that same look, I stamp the sentiment with black VersaFine ink, and then I clear emboss it. Simon's Big Scripty Hugs is die cut from matte gold cardstock and black sheet foam. I try to remember to leave the foam die cut in its backing. When I do use this method for foam backing a sentiment, I always have better alignment. The impression of the sentiment on the foam makes it easy to stab. By removing the inside die cuts of the foam sentiment, using your craft pick allows you to make any final adjustments. I let the glue dry before removing the foam backing. The cardstock can easily slip when the glue is wet. The panel is attached to a card base, the sentiment attached, and the card finished off with gold sequins topped with Nuvo Crystal Drops Morning Dew. For the last card, I'm going to be ink blending a smaller panel of Bristol Smooth cardstock with Speckled Egg and Pumice Stone Distress Oxide inks. This will be used to stamp the wreath on. The main ink blended panel and silver metallic cardstock are die cut with Simon Says Stamps thin circle frame. There are two smaller sentiments stamped on this card. One is stamped in the circle die cut and the other directly on the panel. The wreath is stamped with Versamark ink on the smaller ink blended panel. At the last minute, I remembered to use my anti-static powder. The wreath was embossed with Wow's silver metallic embossing powder. It was easily fussy cut as I left about 1/8 of an inch border around the image's edge. The panel was adhered to a card base of Neenah Classic Crest 110 pound cardstock. I chose one of my circle dies that would fit underneath the wreath. The circle panel was die cut. I used a little bit of tape to attach the thin circle frame to the circle border before adhering it to the card base. The foam was also attached to the card base and the circle die cut mounted on top. I didn't have any foam squares that were narrow enough for the wreath. They were cut down the middle and interspersed around the die cut. The wreath was adhered to the foam-backed circle panel. Simon's Simple Stem was die cut 5 times from vellum paper. The stems were modified so that they would encircle the embossed wreath. To adhere them, a little bit of glue was dotted on the stem and they were tucked underneath the wreath so that the glue could not be seen. Simon's Etched Dragonfly was also die cut from vellum and attached to the card. The card was embellished with lots of silver confetti topped with Nuvo Crystal Drops Morning Dew. And that wraps up this set of 3 cards featuring Simon Says Stamps Garden Greetings from the July card kit. I hope these cards give you some inspiration. Simple ink blended backgrounds with beautiful embossing. As always, I appreciate your visit.